Hi there, Mike Barter again, and everybody's favorite mountain guide. Today I'm going to do ropes part 2. I know I did part 1 quite a while ago, and then we talked about fall factors, and I just wanted to know, the kind of energy that ropes are expected to, to absorb and that sort of thing. So to give you some more information. Today I'm assuming, because you're reading up on ropes and you're on the internet, that you may be wondering what rope that you need to buy. And if you walk into the typical climbing shop like this here, it can get overwhelming. I mean, it's just like there's ropes everywhere. There's like big ropes, little ropes, long ropes, short ropes, skinny ropes, fat ropes, and different color ropes. And remember, the green rope is always stronger than the blue rope, and the red rope is stronger than the green rope. But I'm just kidding. Anyhow, today's mountain, climbers, we expect a lot from our ropes, right? And there's so many disciplines of climbing these days. We got the mountaineers, we got the ice climbers, got rock climbers, we got those anorexic whippets that live on cigarettes and Diet Coke that, climb 513 and stand around a lot. They have special needs. Boy, do they have special needs. Okay, so like the mountaineer is wants a rope that's, reasonably lightweight, isn't going to absorb water. Length may not be near as important as, like say a sport climber that has to have a rope that's 60 meters in length or 70 meters, depending on the area or where you come from. The anorexic whippet guy, he's going to have the skinniest single rope that he can find, and as light as weight, because that's the difference on his red point when he's climbing 513. So I don't know, man. Ropes. They're all so complicated. By far, okay, let's just talk about the kinds of ropes that are out there right now. By far the most common would be this little puppy here, which is just a single rope, rated for, this is probably, I don't know, 10.2, 50 meters in length, and it's a real general all-purpose rope. Now, by a single rope, I mean, these are the most common because, sport climbers use them, rock climbers use them, glacial travel dudes use them, mountaineers use them, ski tours, and the advantage of this rope is, because it's a single rope, is the simplicity of it. It's just, you're just managing one rope. And I don't know, like, you can think about if you're handling two ropes, because we're going to talk here in a second about twin ropes and half ropes. But unless you've managed ropes a lot, it's kind of like sex, right? Unless you've done it a lot, you're probably not going to be very good at it, right? And I can remember, my first time, and you throw your gloves on, and you add in a little fear and some exhaustion, and then next thing you know, and things just aren't going the way you want it to go, and it ends up being just a terrible mess. Now, that's sex. I'm going to talk about ropes. Ropes aren't near so bad. But handling them with gloves and draping it as into a carabiner with your gloves on, and when you're cold and you're exhausted, isn't quite as easy as you think. And so the simplicity of having just a single rope is a big advantage. Now, the other ropes we have on the market these days are twin ropes. And, well, this is a twin rope here, and this is a half rope. Now, you can look at the tail ends of these ropes. There'll be markings when you first buy them, and that'll determine what rope it is. The half rope has, like just the 1/2, and that's a half rope symbol on it. And then this single rope is going to have an infinity symbol on it. And now the advantages of having these small ropes is they're quite a bit, well, they are lighter, although adding two of these ropes together is still going to weigh more than a single rope. The biggest advantage of these ropes in the case of this half rope is that you can clip, if you have a root that's wandering quite a ways back and forth, you can clip one rope over here and you clip one rope over here. These are rated for fall factors of 2. They won't take very many of them because of the narrow, but it also reduces the dynamic forces on your protection because they're so thin, they're stretchy. Whereas now, if you look at a single rope, you have to clip both ropes into a single piece of protection. These are not rated for fall factor 2s, right? Okay, so your chances of cutting and damaging this rope is greatly increased because of how narrow these ropes are. These ones will anywhere from 8.5 to 9.2 millimeters, maybe 9.5. These ones are anywhere from the 7 to 8 millimeter range. And now that's awful narrow for a climbing rope. And so you have to have these two, and each one of these has to clip into each piece of protection. The advantage of being able to clip a half rope is, of course, if my root wanders, I can clip one here, and then I can clip one here, and I can reduce the rope drag, and that's one of the big advantages. The second advantage, and also one of the major reasons that we use these, is if you're on a big long climb, and you have to abseil, rappel the route that you came up. This gives you the advantage of being able to rappel an entire length of the rope. So a full 50 meters or 60 meters. Usually these ropes are a bit longer because they're lighter and you're using them on a specific sort of climbing. So they'll be 60 meters in length. With ice climbing, they might be as much as 70 meters in length. So you can join the ropes together, run it through your protection, join the ropes together and be able to abseil the full length of the rope. This greatly increases your speed of your descent. So if you're in places like here, and say Cotopaxi, this is where we're guiding. I was using these half ropes to guide with because I wasn't anticipating a massive amount of energy spent on the rope. So I figured these are more than strong enough, but there also reduces the weight. So we're basically we're just doing crevasse glacier travel and guarding for falling into a crevasse. Where I used twin ropes was a place like this on Huascaran and climbing the shield, which is a big ice face. I don't know how many pitches, like 20 pitches or something like that. And also on El Pamayo. So here, you're climbing, and when you're descending, you don't want to spend a lot of time in there because of the objective hazards that are above you. And in this case, there's a huge ice cornice that in the past had released and killed climbers that were stuck in this couloir. And so I just want to get the hell out of there. So for me, my best objective is just to take the lightest ropes possible. In this case, I would use single ropes. I also use single ropes on places like ice climbs where I have to abseil. So something like this, the upper Weeping Pillar, where I've got 4 rappels for the upper pillar, and then 3 full-length 60-meter rappels for the bottom ice wall on the Weeping Wall. So I would be a day and a half trying to get off that thing if I didn't have big long ropes like this. Okay, so let's say you want to shorten up your rope, or you have to cut it, and you might do this for a couple of reasons. One might be that you feel you have a damaged section, so if you're using your rope for ice climbing and you think you kicked a crampon through it or walked over it one too many times and it was punctured, maybe an end was bent over a rock and got damaged, or you're shortening up a rope for glacier travel, so you have a big long rope and you don't need 70 meters or 60 meters or even 50 meters to use for glacier travel. Here's the way I do it. So basically, I have a good sharp knife, I have a lighter, I have some electrical tape, and if it's a hot day, then I have a gin and tonic, double gin and tonic. The last part is optional. Then I wrap the electrical tape before I do anything around the rope. And the reason I do this is because if I just cut the rope, it kind of falls apart and frays, like the mantle and the core become separated. And then I give it a couple, 3 wraps, and then I'll cut it. Careful that I'm not facing the knife towards myself. There we go. All right. Okay. So I have about an inch of electrical tape over the end that I'm going to cut. And I'll go, this is the end I want to get rid of. I'll go 3/4 of that inch, and then I'll cut my rope with a good sharp knife so it's nice and straight. Then I take my lighter, and once I think it's all sort of taped together, okay, and just be careful, you don't want to make the taped end too long, you know, like don't put 2 or 3 inches in there, because it'll become rather stiff, and when you're pulling it through an anchor or something like that, it can catch and become, you know, create difficulties for you. Okay? Okay, so I'm assuming again this is probably going to be the first rope that you bought or pretty close to it. So if it's a second or third rope, you already have a pretty good idea what length of rope that you need, probably based on the areas that you climb at, but it really is becoming that 60 meters for most rock climbing areas is the minimum length, and 70 meters is becoming increasingly common as route designers are starting to put up longer and longer routes. So that being is that, you know, you have a 30 meter, 32 meter length pitch of climbs and you're getting lowered off of it. You don't want to run out of rope as you're getting lowered off. Another good reason why we always tie a knot at the end of the rope so that you can't run through somebody's belay device. The thing is with ropes, like, people tend to think of them as ropes, but once you're, you know, the first thing I try to get through to people's head is like, once you're connected and tied into that thing, yeah, they call it a rope, but actually it's a technical piece of mountaineering equipment, right? And we use it for all kinds of things. Yeah. All right, so we decided we're going to buy a rope, right? And it might be your first rope, might be your second rope, I don't know. But anyhow, I was looking at the Mountain Equipment Co-op catalog the other day. It just came out. That would be, if you were in the States, that would be REI. And in Europe, you guys have that great big store that sells everything. Forget the name of it. But doesn't matter. If you walk in there and you don't have a plan, you're going to be inundated with ropes. The co-op this year is selling 11 ropes. And 11 ropes, you know, if I just looked on them on the shelf, it would just be like, well, what do I get? Well, first thing I got to identify is what I need, right? So let's say your first rope, and you're going to use it for mountaineering and glacier travel. And you've decided, I'm going to go with, you know, a single rope. So if it's just for mountaineering and glacier travel, then basically you're going to want it as light as possible, being a single rope, so you want the lightest single rope that you can get. And you also want to have that waterproof coating, okay? Now, the waterproof coating for this purpose is well worth the money, because at the end of the day, when you're dragging along the ground, you're traveling across the glacier and in the snowfields, it will pick up a lot of water if it's not coated. The coating itself is well worth the money. It doesn't last forever, but it lasts long enough that it justifies the expense for mountaineering. So you can just go in there and, you know, you already know it's a single rope that gets rid of most of the ropes in there, right? So that leaves you with about 4. You're going to go with the lightest rope you got, so you're going to be down to 1 or 2. And then you're going to want the dry coating on it, so that's going to leave you with possibly 1, possibly 2 ropes, right? And then from there, it's just a matter of, okay, well, which one, you know, is more expensive and which one goes better with the clothing that I wear. And that's about all there is to it. Now, if you're going to go rock climbing and you're just using this rope specifically for rock climbing, save your money. You don't need the waterproof coating. It costs like 40 bucks or 50 bucks or something like that. And it really isn't going to do you any good unless you're climbing in the pouring rain all the time. Which, I mean, who does that? Rock climbing, right? So, once again, you're getting rid of all your double ropes. You're getting rid of your twin ropes out of there. That leaves you with probably 3 or 4 ropes. And then you're looking at something, you don't need the thinnest rope possible, especially for your first rope, okay? Because, I mean, you're going to be doing a lot of industrial work with it. So you'll be doing a lot of top roping. You might be, starting out leading, and so you're going to be sitting on it a lot. You might be taking a few extra falls, or quite a few falls. So I would just go for something in the 10.5 range, so that's fairly thick for a single rope. But it's also thick enough and industrial enough to put up with a lot of damage. Not damage per se, but I mean a lot of, wearing over rocks and rock edges and sitting in the dirt and the soil and, I don't know, stuff like that. Now, besides the sort of the waxy waterproof coating that is available on some single ropes, there's also a feature that they call duodess. And what that is just a fancy term for saying the rope changes color at the center, right? And in here I have a duodess rope, and you'll see on one end, it's kind of like, I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's polka dotted, and on this side, and this got kind of a striped thatch feature to the outer sheath of it. And what this does is allows me to identify where the center of the rope is. These thatch and polka dot thing changes right at the center, and so it's very easy for me to identify where the center of the rope is. So when I feed one end through, so if I'm doing half rope rappels, and half rope rappels means I'm just taking the rope, feeding one through the anchor, and then feeding it down until I come to the center, and then rappelling down both ends, pulling one end and getting the hell out of town. But so it's very, very good for that, is finding the center of the rope. And also a really nice feature, that applies to guiding, but it also applies to climbing in general, is that I can see where that rope changes quite often from maybe as far as 10 meters away. And it gives me a good idea as to where my guest is or my second climber is. And that's really useful if I'm on a route where there are certain problems where it's going to be a little bit harder, or there's overhangs and there's a potential for somebody to come off, then I may pay a little more attention. I'm always paying attention anyhow, but I'm coming up there and I can anticipate when somebody's going to have a little bit more problems, or they're going to be moving a little quicker because the ground gets a little easier. So I can easily see that, okay, there it's changing, and it's, X number of meters away from me, so I know that he's 30 meters below me or 35 meters below me. Or I could have the change over and I have it up here, and I could just look down and say, oh, I got about 5 meters of past the center here. So, this is where the hard part was, roughly. I'll keep a really close eye, or maybe I'll pull it a little tighter and help my partner up through that in particular spot. So a duodess rope, I mean, once again, you're going to pay a little bit more cash for it. You don't get anything for free these days, not that you ever did, but I think it's a worthwhile feature for the stuff that I do anyhow, because I'm going to end up owning a rope for quite a while, usually a couple of years, maybe sometimes 3. I'll be using the same rope, depending on how much I use it. So in my estimation, it's worth the extra $30 or $40. Remember, you're not going to buy a ton of ropes, right? So it'll give you for your first rope, I mean, it gives you a little something more to play with. And the characteristics that I look in for a rope is something, and it's hard to quantify, because some of them will come across in the sheath and the core. It feels like there's quite a bit of space, and it's kind of spongy. It's the only way I can describe it. And then on the other extreme is something that it's so stiff, it feels like almost cable-ish, and I'm looking for something that's halfway in between there. So go ahead and, squeeze the Sherman, I guess, and find something that's, I don't know, I guess if it's your first rope, it's going to be really hard to identify. I mean, all the ropes, of course, will be over designed for what you're going to use them for.